On our mortgage-free segment today, we're going to interview Christina Marriott from Colorado. Today, we're going to learn how Christina paid off her mortgage early and how others can do the same in their early 40s. Welcome to the show, Christina.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Andy. This is exciting.
I'm happy to have you here. It's been great to have you in the Thriving Families Facebook community, and I'm glad we connected today. Thank you so much for doing this. Christina, how we're going to start today is with the Mortgage Free 3. So this helps people get a little bit of information on your situation just in a quick, easy format. So I'm going to ask you 3 questions. You're going to rapid fire back to me so people understand what you've done here with this crazy mortgage payoff process. So the first question is, what was your starting mortgage principal balance?
$232,000.
$232,000. Okay. And then how long did it take you to pay off $232,000?
Almost exactly 12 years.
Awesome. Okay. And I understand there's a little more detail to that 12 years too, which we're going to get into in a little bit. Now, what is the home valued at today?
Somewhere we think right around 480.
Wow. Okay. So you own 480 free and clear.
Yes.
That is awesome. What a great feeling. Cool. All right. Let's talk about the details now. When did you decide that paying off your mortgage was a good idea?
So we've always been pretty frugal and we've always wanted to be debt free. But I remember a very specific moment about 10 years ago. I was at a women's meeting at church, and this woman stood up and she talked about how she and her husband had paid off their home in 12 years. And I had never even heard of that before. I mean, I knew it was a concept that could be accomplished, but when a real person that I knew who wasn't a multimillionaire and who was right in front of me said that she had done it, that just lit a fire in me. And my husband says, Christina, we were always good with money and we'd always been paying off debt. And he's right. But for some reason, hearing her story, for me personally, just lit a fire of, let's get this done.
Wow. And it's great to hear it from somebody that you know, and then you're like, well, if they can do it, then we can do it, right?
Exactly. That's exactly how it was.
That's very cool. Well, let's talk about the steps you then took at that point to say, all right, let's do this. What changes did you make? Because it sounds like you guys were already pretty frugal, but what did you do at that point to start to pay off your mortgage early?
So at that point, I really started reading a lot of books. I discovered Mr. Money Mustache, Financial Samurai, different blogs, learned about the FIRE movement, things like that. And we just kind of hunkered down even more and ate out less and tried to be even more frugal. And just every extra dollar we had, we put toward the mortgage. So we budgeted and we did our budget every month, and just everything extra just went to the mortgage.
Wow, that's cool. So like generally expenses wise, you say you're pretty frugal. What do you typically spend in a year or something like that?
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's a good question. I would say we probably spend about 3,000. Well, that was between 3,000 and 4,000 a month, but that was with the mortgage. So I don't know what it looks like now. I'm assuming it'll be somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 a month, and we'll have to recalculate the budget.
That's amazing because you just did that epiphany right there. It's like we were spending this, and now the mortgage is gone, and now we have that much more. That's cool.
Right.
That's very cool. Yeah. So let's talk about the process. So you guys hunkered down, you spent a little bit less to reach this goal. Did you do anything to increase your income along the way as well?
So I have been a stay-at-home mom now for 13 years. We lost that income 13 years ago. We did get rental incomes or rental properties. And so that has been great to help replace my income as well. And then just general pay raises that my husband's gotten over the years. Nothing too much beyond that.
Cool. No crazy side hustles or anything like that besides the rental properties,
we haven't. Right? Yeah, just the rental properties.
Very cool. Let's talk about the rental property. So was your first rental property purchased within this 12-year time period? Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so we bought our first rental property in 2013. And so that cost about $120,000. And so we had to come up with a $25,000 down payment, because you have to put 20% down. So we did that. And then in 2014, we bought a second one about the same price. And then in 2016, we bought a third one. That was about 180. So again, we had to come up with the down payment. So for each of those, we came up with the down payment. And then we had 4 mortgages. And so we decided we wanted to be completely debt free, but we focused on the highest mortgage first, which happened to be one of the rental properties. And so we paid off one of the rental properties. We paid that off about 2 years ago. So it took us about 3 years to pay off the first rental property. And that was $125,000 total that we paid off there. And then we just took, of course, that rental income and put all of that towards our primary residence. Exactly. And so now we have 2 mortgages left. And our goal now is to pay those 2 off, which we should have done in 3 years, to pay both of those off. And then at that point, all of our rental income will be straight profit, and we can just move forward from there.
Wow. Okay, I have a couple questions there. So we're talking 4 properties total, 3 that are rentals, and then 1 that you live in. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So the one that we live in now, the primary, is the one that we just paid off. And that's the one, truthfully, I'm most excited about because that was the biggest mortgage. And it was our primary, which means we live here and it's really nice. I love how you have talked before about how you just like to stand in your grass and just be like, I own this grass. You know, it's very, very cool and very different from a rental property to look at your own home and say, these stairs are mine. This kitchen is mine. This grass is mine. And it was the biggest payment every month that we had. And so to be able to have that gone it's great.
That's incredible. I love that feeling. That's very cool. And your long-term plan of having 4 homes paid off, that's incredible. So the passive income that you're able to receive from these 3 rental properties, that helps you guys cover a lot of your living expenses as well, or is that diverted somewhere else?
All of the money that we make from the rental property goes straight to paying off mortgages.
I
all
love
of it.
that plan.
So our investment strategy with the rental properties is maybe a little bit different than other people. I have a wonderful friend and mentor who became a self-made millionaire with rental properties. And she has the same philosophy, which is I'm not going to buy a rental property if my net home pay is only $50 a month. That's just not even worth getting up in the morning. So she is very good about finding properties that net at least $1,000 a month. So that's where our focus has been. It's just finding properties that cash flow really well. And so then we take that cash flow and just use it to pay off the properties. Ultimately, the end game, once in 3 years, hopefully, when we have everything paid off, is, I told my husband, I said, I get a new kitchen. We're going to redecorate the house. We need new cars. Our cars are 11 and 13 years old. We need new cars. So once everything's paid off, we'll take a year or 2, redo the house and get new cars. And then ultimately my husband would like to go part-time.
I think that demonstration of delayed gratification is incredible because sometimes that can be the opposite. I know when I started out in my 20s, I got the new car, I got the house that I couldn't afford, I got all that stuff right away. And then I realized, whoa, actually, I can't afford this. And it wasn't until that epiphany where it was like, okay, maybe I need to do it differently. And it sounds like you guys have done that for quite a while.
We have, but Andy, you bring up an excellent point because we have 3 children. They're now 13, 11, and 8. And probably about 4 years ago when our youngest was 4, we realized that our kids were finally actually fun. And I'm not meaning that to be mean, but they could do things, right? They could travel and they didn't need naps and they didn't need diaper changes. And we could actually do really fun things. And we felt like there is this golden window of time that you have with your children. And we kind of got to a point where we thought, maybe we need to take some of this money and do some fun things. And so we did take them to Disneyland, and we went on a cruise in February, but we budgeted for that and we put it into the cards, and we were still putting money in retirement, and we were still paying off our homes, and we were still doing all of these things. But we also realized, why are we living so strapped and so frugally? We do have the money to enjoy ourselves now. So let's do some things, but we planned it. It wasn't spontaneous, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does make sense. And I love your point on waiting till the kids are slightly older to do the fun stuff because, yeah, going to Disney World maybe when they're 2 and they can't remember it and they're going to be screaming and it's like, what am I doing spending this money? We've done that so many times where we've plunked down whatever for a trip or just a kid experience. And I'm like, we're doing this too early. This is a waste of money.
Yeah, and I certainly don't mean that in a mean way. Yeah, I have loved every stage with my children, but when they're 1, you can get away with buying them garage sale toys for Christmas, and you don't need to go to Disneyland with them. But now they're just at such a fun age, and so there is a balance there.
Well, let's talk about post-mortgage freedom here. It sounds like you guys have some plans to update the house and maybe travel a little bit more. Is that how you guys are planning to celebrate?
So the cruise in February was our celebration trip. We planned it over a year ago, obviously not knowing anything about COVID. And so it was just pure dumb luck that we happened to plan it in February because it was about 3 weeks after we got home that they shut everything down. And according to our calculations, we would have had the house paid off in March. And we ended up not paying it off until June because the cruise was more expensive than we wanted to. But again, we wanted it to be fun. We didn't want to go frugal on the cruise. If we were going to go, we were going to snorkel with the dolphins or whatever and do those fun things. We planned for it. We budgeted for it. It did not go on a credit card. And it did push off paying off our house by a couple of months. But in the end, does it really matter if we paid our house off in March or June? No, because we had this wonderful family experience and then COVID hit and it really is like, we don't know the next time we'll be able to travel. I'm so glad we did it. And that was our big celebration of, yes, we paid off the mortgage. Let's go on a cruise.
Hey, you know what? The timing was perfect though, because that cruise would have been canceled if you waited until June.
Pure dumb luck. We were so lucky. And we had a
God.
fabulous time. It was so much fun.
That's great. That's great. Yeah. So outside of maybe updating the kitchen and doing the travel and things like that, do you guys have any other plans for the money that you have extra now? Is that going to go towards the rental properties as well?
Yeah. So right now, all of the extra money is going towards the rental properties. So we're not even going to do the kitchen until the rental properties are paid off. According to our calculations, we should have the 2 rental properties paid off in 3 years. And so it's just a little bit more of delayed gratification. It is funny. I have to tell my husband, we're not doing anything else until I get my kitchen because I don't like my kitchen. But
there you go. Yeah, there's something to having a nice kitchen because you spend a lot of time in the kitchen. It's not just for cooking too. We sit in our kitchen and just entertain too. We'll talk to the guests. Any guests that come over, we end up just sitting in the same small spot in the kitchen. So it's like, all right, kitchen better be a nice place to stay. That's cool. And talk to me a bit about your husband's plans for part-time in the future. That's exciting. That's an exciting conversation. Tell me about that.
So I recently listened to your Coast Fire podcast with Sam of Financial Samurai. That's kind of where we'll be at. I have ulcerative colitis, which is one of the most expensive lifelong illnesses that you can have. It's very important that we maintain health insurance for that. And my husband happens to absolutely love his job. And he tells me all the time, Christina, why would I want to do anything else? I would love to get more rental properties, truthfully. He doesn't. He's like, but I love what I do. Why would I want to stop? We would love to have the flexibility of him only having to work 3 days a week. I homeschool the children. And how cool would that be that 2 days a week we can do more traveling or go on hikes or spend more time as a family? So ultimately, in 3 years, once we have, probably more like 5 years, once we have everything paid off and the kitchen and the cars, we would like for him to go part-time so that he still has his insurance and also because he loves what he does. And then he would like to maybe do some consulting work, whatever, he'd like to just have a little bit more flexibility in his schedule. So that's kind of what our goal is. And we figure that Coast Fire, I guess, for us, that's what it looks like for us.
Yeah, I like that. I really like that concept of Coast Fire, learning from Sam and Jessica from the Pioneers about that concept, because it just seems to make a lot of sense, especially for people who are naturally frugal, but maybe they don't really want to retire. They like what they're doing. It's like, okay, what can we do to semi-retire or find a way to work part-time or just kind of create the thing that works best for your family? And I really like that concept. So I'm glad you guys enjoyed that and are finding your own version of that over the next 5 years. I think that's going to be fantastic for your family. So let's talk to the person who's listening right now. You guys are in your early 40s. Maybe they're in their 30s and they're like, hey, well, mortgage freedom, that sounds pretty nice. So what steps would you tell them to get there? Maybe the first thing they could do after finishing this interview.
I would say just get started. When I was in my early 30s, 40 felt so far away. It felt like I'm never going to be 40. That's old people. But it happens. Time passes, whether or not we think it does, and just get started. And just whatever extra you have, the number one rule of financial management, in my opinion, is spend less than you earn and invest the difference. To me, it is that simple. It's not always easy, but it's that simple.